Imagine that you just caught your son smoking, in direct violation of the rules of the high school baseball team, on which he is the star pitcher. He's scheduled to pitch the playoff game tomorrow. Do you tell the coach to bench him, or do you lecture him and forgive him? Imagine that you are grading a set of final exam papers, and one ordinarily good student gets a 59%, which means he will fail the course. He pleads extenuating circumstances, and you are quite sure he's telling the truth. Do you round up his grade to a passing grade of 60, or do you stick by your system? Imagine that you are on the board of a private school whose headmaster has a history of alcoholism and he's been caught drinking with a group of students. Do you vote to dismiss him to protect the school and community, or do you seek to keep him on and help him to reassemble his life? If these three scenarios and questions trouble you even a little bit, you're experiencing a dilemma that's as old as literature and as timely as tomorrow. Claims of justice urge us to stick to our principles, hold to the rules, despite the pressures of the moment, and pursue fairness without attention to personalities or situations. Perhaps that's why the eyes of justice, personified as a goddess, are typically blindfolded, so that she can judge only according to an even-handed impartiality that cherishes equality and plays no favorites. So what does it mean to justify? What is justice? Philosopher John Rawls notes that it is the first virtue of a social institution. A just society is one in which the liberties of equal citizenship are taken as settled, the rights secured by justice are not subject to political bargaining or to the calculus of social interests. In their book, Developing Leadership Character, thought leaders Mary Crossan, Gerard Sagitz, and Jeffrey Gantz suggest that there are 5 character elements that contribute to the dimension of justice. The first they suggest is fair and equitable. For this element, we must ensure that consequences are appropriate to the circumstances. The challenge here is twofold. First, to decide whether or not an issue or dilemma should be assessed according to a fairness standard, and then second, to decide just what fairness means in that particular context. Next, they point to procedural. For this element, we need to apply due process and appropriate standards for all. We must remain open and transparent in all procedures. Thirdly, they talk about proportionate. For this element, they suggest that we need to ensure that responses and outcomes are commensurate with the circumstances, and ensure that rewards or sanctions fit the situation. The fourth element they talk about is even-handed. And for this element, they say we need to remain impartial, unbiased in the treatment and judgment of all others. And finally, they point to socially responsible. As socially responsible leaders, they suggest we need to be aware of injustices inside and outside the organization and seek to remedy or set them right. The elements of justice can work together and can challenge each other as well. For example, being equitable is supported by being even-handed, and even being even-handed contributes to being proportionate. The bottom line for leaders is that being equitable and fair, even-handed and proportionate are worthwhile goals, but they may be challenging to achieve. Possessing the virtue of justice can provide important motivation and even fuel courage, the courage to step up and initiate action. Justice also ensures that accountability is not superficial, but takes into consideration the variety of interests at stake in any given situation. For example, a leader's actions to be sustainable, they must be perceived as equitable. To demonstrate justice, leaders may require a number of other dimensions of leader character. Without humanity and humility, for example, a leader would not bother to understand how others see things. They wouldn't consult others, or even give others a say in matters. Without courage, drive, and accountability, a leader might not have the capacity to tackle the myriad of challenges that come with that role. Ultimately, the individual who embodies and taps into a sense of justice is likely to be a highly effective leader. Justice guides the development and the operation of any organization. Justice-based leaders seek to promote a culture that develops, enriches, and empowers each member of the group, and thereby strengthens the whole. Thought leaders Kevin Ryan and Karen Boland remind us, however, that justice is not a matter of treating everybody the same, but rather of giving each individual what he or she needs. Most of us learn about injustice early in life. Children recognize justice and its counterpart, injustice, from a very young age. They begin the "that's not fair" cry as early as 3 years of age. Can you remember injustices that you may have experienced? Perhaps an insensitive teacher may have dismissed a sincere question that you asked. Perhaps a friend betrayed your confidence. Or perhaps a beloved family member or a pet passed away far too soon. For our students, we can offer practice with this virtue by providing them with opportunities to choose well from a range of responses to a situation. We can also fortify their learning by sharing historical and/or literary examples that inspire just thoughts and just actions, particularly in the face of injustice. The Jubilee Center for Character and Virtue offers a few ideas as to how we can build virtue knowledge and the virtue knowledge of our students. For example, what can those who have the moral virtue of justice do particularly well? Well, those who have developed a sense of virtue, fairness, or justice are able to do things like they desire the right sorts of things or goods to the right degree or the right strength. They desire their fair share of the right sorts of things, hopefully getting what they deserve. They desire that others get their fair share as well, and that can lead to a virtuous life. The virtue of justice forms an important part of many other virtues since it relates to treating others well. What are the benefits of acting out of the moral virtue of justice? This is perhaps best understood by thinking through what social relations are like when fairness or the virtue of justice is absent. Put quite simply, what does unfairness look like and why? Unfairness can show itself in desiring the wrong kinds of things to the wrong degree, or more than is even necessary, or less than is necessary. Desiring more or less than we deserve. Desiring that others get more or less than they deserve. Justice is the basis of any meaningful peace in social relations. Just laws, for instance, promote and protect a virtuous society, while unjust laws promote vices and conflict. When might I practice the moral virtue of justice? Well, we need to practice the virtue of justice in any situation where we feel unfairness is at work. We need to practice this virtue in any situation where we find ourselves saying, "that's unfair," either on behalf of ourselves or of others. Which desires, feelings, or emotions might be alerting me to the practice of moral virtue, justice? The virtue of fairness or justice really governs the emotions of envy, spite, and anger. We know that justice is a pervasive moral concern of human beings in general. And really and truly, the fairness of parents, teachers, and other persons in authority ranks very high among the criteria by which younger people sit in judgment of older generations. Student concerns with justice provide wonderful opportunities for cultivating their serious reflection on such matters that are fundamental to the development of good character. Occasions for conversations such as these crop up regularly in the school experience. Also, literature, current events, and most everything that goes on in school life provides opportunities for principled thinking, for taking each person seriously, for recognizing the importance of impartiality, and getting the facts right. Literature at every reading level is abound with examples of justice championed and justice denied. Explicit attention to justice in the school community means that leaders foster respect for each and every person, that leaders recognize merit, that leaders levy sanctions consistently, that leaders respond to needs, and leaders discourage prejudicial tendencies. Several of you have raised the question about whether or not character can actually be taught. Others have asked, how can character be taught? This link on this slide will take you to a short video from the Jubilee Center for Character and Virtue that may help answer some of your questions. This video features many of the thought leaders that are the backbone of the Jubilee Center, and also will allow you to listen to the voices of many of the students that are attending their schools.